The human condition is that we want to be comfortable without pain. And if we can have pleasure, even better. And that's what is our motivator. We live in a world today where everything is open and available. People make themselves available, even though they don't even want to make themselves available. But everybody is seeking to have the benefit, the pleasure from another, and they might not be so healthy. What brings this out very clearly is in sexuality. Jewish law is that a man can't look at another woman, even at her fingernails, to have pleasure from her, let alone her body or her face. Now, a man can have from his wife that pleasure, his children, but another woman that's even available, even if you're single. Well, sorry, if you're single and you're looking to get married and you're looking at someone in order to know if you'd be interested in her, so then that would be permissible, but only for that purpose, not for self-gratification, for the purpose of, hey, this young woman is available. I'm available. Is she someone I'd be interested in? So you look at a picture, if that be it, and you decide. But otherwise, if you're married, well, you're not available, and no one's available for you. And therefore, even to appreciate or to seek pleasure, that doesn't mean that you can't say to someone, if you're a host being hosted by someone, and say thank you for your, thank you for your kindness. The food was wonderful, right? You're giving the pleasure rather than seeking pleasure. But to seek for your own personal pleasure, not allowed. Could you imagine this one idea? What this would do to change humanity? Just this one thing that guys in particular would commit themselves to. It might feel that you're imprisoned because of this. But after working on yourself, you're going and refining yourself, you're going to see that, I'm actually released from the imprisonment, that I must have pleasure at the expense of someone else. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We continue in the 12th letter. The Alter Rebbe explains that on high, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, God, that is, infinite light of God, creates peace between two qualities of the divine order, chesed and gvura, kindness, indiscriminate giving, and gvura, very discriminating in its approach of strength. The angel Michael, and the angel Gabriel, fire and water they are, or water is Mechol, Chesed, and Gabriel is fire. And each one wants to put the other one out. It's the nature of those two qualities. And to creations, fire and water. But when they stand before Kodesh Baruch Hu, they can work in unison. And what does that create? A inclusionary of kindness and, and restraint and refrain and power and strength. It creates compassion. And that draws down into this world the quality of compassion, of mercy, where there might be some kind of judgment on high, but it is now tempered, that judgment, with sweetness. That's what compassion is. And that's what it means, the name of the Tetragrammaton of God, that produces this compassion, that where there might be a judgment against the person on high, that we can sweeten that judgment. So, how do we arouse that? How do we bring that down into our world? How do we make that a reality? Says the Alter Rebbe, to bring that, what we call peace, because peace means two factions that are opposite from each other, Chesed Gvura, right and left, Mechol and Gavriel, and bring peace between them because there's something greater than them that illuminates them, that brings them together. This will be accomplished through the act of charity, Maisat Tzedakah. Meaning, when we're benevolent, giving life, graciousness, kindness, and compassion to someone who has nothing of their own, and thereby to revive the spirit of the lowly, to revive the heart of the downcast. Then we release this illumination from above, and meaning this Ein Sof light of where God makes peace between Chesed and Gvura. We temper the sweetening of the Gvura, of the judgment, with kindness, and that's the concept of compassion. So that's what we affect by the act of tzedakah, of charity. Pretty powerful. Be a good idea if anybody has a pushka right now, as a charity box at home. Take out a coin, take out $1, whatever it is, and put it into the charity box. I don't have one in front of me. I have it in the synagogue, the other room. Got to do it. I did it earlier, got to do it again. Now, furthermore, there's a refinement that comes to the individual. And today we'll begin the process of a refinement, because refinement comes in different ways. Right? There's a refinement when you do the act of charity, which we're not going to talk about right now. But there's a refinement that comes when a person, as we are doing now, learning Torah, but you're doing it lishma, for the sake of the connection with God, right? In other words, you're not doing it for your betterment. Not to say that there isn't a betterment. You're not doing it because it's your pleasure, right? Which it should be our pleasure. And that would be amazing. Not to say you're not having pleasure. That's not the point. Not to say you're not having pleasure. The motivation is lishma, for its own sake, for the sake of the connection with God. This is what God needs from us. So therefore, we're doing that. That's what we're talking about, right? What you do in that act is also you're making peace in heaven, right? In the terrestrial retinue, as it's called. Now, what is that heavenly retinue? What is that terrestrial? I'm sorry, terrestrial means down here, but both heavenly and earthly. What is the heavenly? Well, as we mentioned, the angels, the prince Michal, the prince Gavriel, the angels above, the divine attributes of God as they express those divine attributes, the chambers that are in the world of Bria, as the Zohar explains. So in other words, what we're creating above is a harmonious relationship between Gvura and Chesed, sweetening the severities, as we've explained, right? And that will also then affect down here. Now, in this low world, the fact that it affects very important, because what's the nature of this low world? Spiritual worlds are already more refined. Spiritual worlds are already more godly than this world. This world, in particular, since the sin of Adam, what has happened? Good and evil are mingled together to such a degree that there's no good in this world without bad. No evil without good also. But evil rules in this world. Means it has more predominance over here. It's a more dominant force. And that's as it's written in Ecclesiastes, Koheles. Well, man rules over man, meaning wicked man rules over, the forces of Klippa rules over the man of holiness. Right? And that's what it means. A nation will overpower nation. Now, this is, very evident in our personal lives, that that's in a collective idea of the world. But even in our personal lives, right, well, what does that mean? Well, first of all, in a personal life, we are a microcosm in the entire world. And we see in our personal lives that sometimes the good prevails and sometimes the opposite. Heaven forfend. Right? We have negative thoughts that, we're out of control. We say things that are, we see that very clearly in our own lives, right? Therefore, there will not be any peace in this world ultimately until the time to come when evil will cease to exist and the good shall have refined the world from its evil, right? And we will be able to believe in our source and the divine source of life, because at that time, all evildoers will be scattered. Gone. The impurity shall pass from the earth. And good, because there is good here, but it needs to be extracted. It's not the most powerful force. It's there. Ultimately, it's the most powerful force, because no question. But it needs to be extracted, that good. It doesn't come on its own goodness. Selfishness does. Pleasure does. Well, that's all klipa on its own. Evil then ceases to exist. In other words, the point that we're saying over here is for all that to happen, for the good to be extracted. So the point that we're bringing out over here, this point, in this moment, is that we have to do that. We're doing it right now through our Torah study, and that's the point that he's bringing over here. Through our Torah study, when we do it lishma, you're taking the nature of this world that is a negative, basically negative, pleasure-seeking, self-indulgent nature of this world, of the human condition. And now, even Torah study, you're not doing it for your pleasure. Not to say you're not having pleasure, but you're not doing it for your pleasure. You're doing it lishma, for God's pleasure. For God, that's what he needs from me. That's what he wants from me. When you do it that way, then what are you doing? You're extracting the good that's in the klipa of this world that is not the dominant force. And what's the proof it's not the dominant force? It's much easier to be self-centered and so and seeking one's own benefit and pleasure. That's the nature of this world. You got to overcome that. Even coming to learn Torah, we all do it that way. Yes, Klipas Noiga, Jeffrey. Can you, from Shalish Klipas Atmeas, you can't extract goodness. You can do tshuva on it, but no, it's not. Talking about Klipas Noiga here. Just the very nature of this world. Of course, most the evil that's done is the Shalish Klipas Atmeas is a complete evil, absolutely. But just the very nature of this world is just, not lishma, not for the sake of heaven. And now we're talking about that you rise above the human condition and and even in your Torah study, you might look at Tanya's self-help book. That's self-help, not help God, not lishma, not for the sake of your connection to God. Now, obviously, that's better than not learning Torah, learning Tanya. Obviously, it's better than, other self-directed pleasure seeking, right? Seeking pleasure from someone else, even looking at their beauty so, you can indulge your lust. Obviously, then the Torah study is better. Absolutely. But if it's not done with the Shema for the sake of heaven, then you're not then taking out the good that's in the klipa of this world and elevating it. Ultimately, that elevation will be at the end of times where all evildoers will be eradicated. Parenthetically, some of it's being done right now in the Middle East. And that's what it actually is. And that's what it should be seen as. Nothing but that. So this is one way we do it, is through our Torah study. We'll continue in tomorrow's class and see another way that we create that refinement in us, create that refinement in the world. This was a top-down, if you will. Tomorrow we'll speak about a down-up. Okay. Many. Isn't evil in this world basically the embodiment of the Yetzer Nefesh Bahamis? And our job is to utilize and elevate to a higher plane to extract the Nefesh Elokis. Very good. Yes. Very true what you're saying. But just in the context over here, I mean, that's, the person is the microcosm. So yes, absolutely, we're a microcosm. But then there's the macro world that we have to engage in. So absolutely, in the microcosm, if we deal with it properly, then we'll be able to do in the macro world properly. But in the end, we're talking about, or in the context over here, it's both. Absolutely, it's both things. But of course, dealing with your own evil inclination, if you refine yourself from within, then that gives you the capacity, gives you the capability and the wherewithal to refine the world from without. Absolutely correct. Thank you, Minnie. Non-Jewish studies, Torah and Chassidus is that aschus, the proper elements, yes. like what we're learning here. Any other questions? Siligani, when it's coming to your child, we'll be teaching it in the mornings. Why do the wicked prosper? Why do the righteous suffer? Well, I just explained because the nature of this world, since the sin of Adam and Eve, is that in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, everything evil was separate. You could identify, you could point to it. It was the serpent was Shalosh Klipas is made with complete evil, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil is a mixture of good and evil. Everything else was godly, so it was very easy to live godliness because it was so obvious. But now it's all mixed together, so it's not so obvious. Okay. Any other questions? Afa, bring in today. Baruch Hashem. Are the wicked being eradicated now, or must we wait until Mashiach? Well, Mashiach's around the corner. It's happening right now. They're being eradicated. Sin and are part of, yeah. Vicky, what about the children? Are they evil in the Middle East? Good question, Vicky. We have already an incident and this was not even as bad as this in the Torah of Korach, who was divisive, questioning the rule of Aaron as the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, and even Moses. And the earth opened up, and whole families died. Innocent children died. Clear, part of the Torah teachings. So, and that was not merely, that was a murder, right? And yet, innocent children went down. We learn from there how bad it is divisiveness amongst the Jewish people. We're talking amongst the Jewish people, right? Murder, outright slaughter of what happened October 7th and thereafter. That's even worse. The fact that there's innocent children that as a result is unfortunate, totally. But every war since the beginning of mankind, there was always the innocent lives that unfortunately also got lost, right? Unfortunate. And that's the nature of any kind of war. That's what happened in the Second World War, right? To bring Germany to surrender. Not what you're looking to do, but unfortunate part of the nature of the conflict. And God did that to the innocent children. God did that to the innocent children in the story of Korach. So that's one point. Another point is So there may not be such innocence there because of what they have been trained from being a little kid. Not that they are responsible for that, they're not. But our Torah teaches us to the Jewish people that God will bring, right, for the wickedness of the parents upon the children. So like it's all there. That's amongst the Jewish people, God does that. And the wickedness that we're talking about, we're not talking about murdering when God speaks in that language. So all the more so in this context. We need a guide in our lives of what is moral. And if you're choosing what's morality, then you're playing God. That's a bit of a problem. It's actually a major problem. But allow God to decide what's moral. After all, He's your creator. And He has done that in the Torah. So let's see what the Torah says. So here's just a few instances, a few ideas. Thank you, Vicky. That's just a bit. Again, bottom line, it's very unfortunate. Was it unfortunate for Korach's children that they should go down? Absolutely. Is that what was meant to be? And God did? Yeah. What is the Rebbe's favorite mashka? Well, I don't. Okay. Fine. What about? Okay, we got that. Sorry. Jeffrey has more questions. What's the difference between Nefesh Bahamis and the Yetzer Hara? Nefesh Bahamis, the animal soul is just the full composite of makeup of the entire Yetzer Hara. Means just the inclination, the emotional inclination. Laurie, where's your question? Oh, there it is. God told us to destroy Amalek. Is our enemy today Amalek? Oh, yeah, we don't know exactly who Amalek is. You're right, Laurie, but we don't know exactly. So, you know, so we can't say, oh, we're doing that mitzvah now, destroying Amalek. It'd be nice and easy to be able to, uh, okay, Vicky, I hope that helped. It, it's not, um, it's not pleasant, obviously, but sometimes there's tasks that you have to do that are unpleasant. Today we were learning in Chumash Rashi, right? Things not so pleasant, right? That they're not pleasant, but this is what it is, and this is what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. That's it, plain and simple. I know you. I don't know what you're asking, Yesem. Answer what? What's your question? Just put it back up. Your question. Perhaps I missed it. Give a moment. All right. You know what? We're continuing our conversation tomorrow. Um, Continue our Farbrengen, real Farbrengen, a real thing. Turning Amalek into replying here. I mean, put and read, and you know me. Okay. Why is the world morally confused about Hamas, Hezbollah, and the other evildoers? Uh, that's a real good question, Brett. On one hand, it just doesn't make sense. It seems to be very clear and obvious, at least to you and I and others, right here. Um, on a more deeper level, I would say the confusion is we are in the last moments before the final exile of Mashiach, where God's presence will be very apparent and very real. It's going to be death to evil of the world. It will be put to rest. There's no question. That's what we believe. God is good, and therefore the goodness will prevail. It will, it will happen. There's no question. What I feel and what it seems to me is that this is like the last moments of evil getting its last dig, its last, before rigor mortis sets in, the animal like goes flapping. It's the last flap. It's the last flap before it's done with. So it's making a lot of noise, and people from that a lot of noise, people pick up on it and they kind of, gravitate to it. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Anything else, because it's just like it's just too obvious. Too obvious. Yeah. Okay. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zich in Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Rambam